Kendrick Lamar's journey into the public consciousness was not merely the ascent of a gifted rapper, but the emergence of a transformative voice within the often rigid confines of mainstream hip-hop. From the outset, Kendrick distinguished himself as an artist whose lyrical complexity and thematic ambition defied the expectations typically imposed upon performers in the genre. His early work was marked by a profound engagement with social realities, personal introspection, and a nuanced exploration of identity that transcended the conventional narratives of bravado and materialism. This was not an artist content with surface-level storytelling or facile appeal. Rather, Kendrick Lamar positioned himself as a chronicler of the human condition, speaking to the fractures and contradictions that permeate American life, especially within marginalized communities. The cultural backdrop against which Kendrick emerged was one where hip-hop, despite its origins as a vehicle for resistance and community expression, had increasingly been commodified and simplified for mass consumption. The dominance of party anthems, boastful declarations of wealth, and aggressive posturing shaped the commercial landscape, often sidelining voices that sought to engage with deeper political or philosophical questions. Kendrick's early presence in this environment was therefore both an anomaly and a challenge, as his music demanded listeners to confront uncomfortable truths and reflect on systemic injustices. His artistry was rooted in a tradition of storytelling that honored complexity and contradiction, refusing to offer easy answers or reductive portrayals. From his mixtapes to his debut studio album, Kendrick's lyrical content exhibited a rare combination of poetic dexterity and urgent social commentary. He employed vivid imagery and metaphor not as mere embellishments but as integral tools to dissect issues such as racial inequality, violence, and personal trauma. His narratives often unfolded with a cinematic quality, inviting the audience into intimate moments of vulnerability and resilience. This narrative approach elevated his work beyond entertainment, positioning it as a form of cultural critique and intellectual engagement. In this way, Kendrick Lamar's music functioned on multiple levels, as a reflection of lived experience, as a call to awareness, and as a catalyst for dialogue. The significance of Kendrick's emergence also lies in his ability to navigate the dual demands of authenticity and accessibility, an often precarious balance for artists whose work challenges prevailing norms. While his music was undeniably sophisticated and layered, it was also deeply rooted in the vernacular and rhythms of his community. This grounding in the lived realities of Compton, California, provided a vital anchor that ensured his messages resonated with both local and global audiences. The specificity of his storytelling did not confine his appeal. Rather, it amplified the universality of his themes, allowing listeners from diverse backgrounds to find meaning and connection within his verses. Kendrick's early career was marked by a deliberate cultivation of this dual identity. The artist is both a chronicler of particular experiences and a voice for broader social consciousness. His work reflected an understanding that hip-hop's power lay in its capacity to articulate the complexities of identity and power in contemporary society. Through intricate rhyme schemes and layered narratives, Kendrick invited his audience to reconsider not only the content of his lyrics, but the very purpose of hip-hop as an art form. This positioning was both radical and reverent, acknowledging the genre's roots while pushing its boundaries toward new intellectual and emotional territories. In this context, Kendrick Lamar's rise was not simply a matter of commercial success or critical acclaim, but a transformative moment in cultural discourse. His music illuminated the potential of hip-hop to serve as a medium for profound reflection and social critique, challenging reductive perceptions that often marginalize the genre within the artistic hierarchy. By foregrounding issues of race, identity, and systemic injustice within his work, Kendrick reasserted the foundational role of hip-hop as a voice for marginalized communities, while simultaneously expanding its reach and impact. Moreover, Kendrick's approach to his craft revealed a deep commitment to artistic integrity and social responsibility. He refused to compartmentalize his music into neat categories of entertainment or activism. Instead, he embraced the contradictions and tensions inherent in his role as an artist navigating the commercial music industry and the demands of cultural representation. This dual consciousness informed the thematic richness of his work, which confronted the pressures of fame, the weight of expectation, and the complexities of selfhood with unflinching honesty. The emergence of Kendrick Lamar as a groundbreaking figure in hip-hop thus represented a challenge to the status quo. A challenge not only to the music industry but to cultural gatekeepers and audiences alike. His presence insisted on a re-examination of the criteria by which artistic merit in hip-hop was judged, emphasizing intellectual rigor, emotional depth, and social relevance as essential components. In doing so, Kendrick paved the way for a new era in which hip-hop could be recognized not only as popular music but as a significant cultural and artistic force capable of shaping public discourse and influencing societal change. Kendrick's early work also demonstrated a sophisticated awareness of the historical and cultural legacies that informed his artistry. He positioned himself within a lineage of African-American intellectual and artistic traditions, drawing upon the rich histories of jazz, spoken-word poetry, and protest music. This intertextuality enriched his lyrics, imbuing them with layered meanings and connections that extended beyond the immediate context of contemporary hip-hop. His music became a site where past and present converged, allowing him to engage in a dialogue with the cultural movements and struggles that had come before him. This nuanced articulation of identity and history was particularly significant in a cultural moment characterized by ongoing debates about race, representation, and power in the United States. Kendrick's ability to articulate the tensions and contradictions of Black life in America, between hope and despair, oppression and resistance, vulnerability and strength, resonated deeply with listeners who recognized the authenticity and urgency of his voice. His work provided a language for grappling with these complexities, offering both critique and affirmation in equal measure. The early reception of Kendrick Lamar's music was thus marked by a recognition of his distinctiveness as an artist and a social commentator. While he was embraced by segments of the hip-hop community that valued lyrical skill and substantive content, his style and subject matter also provoked skepticism and misunderstanding among those accustomed to more conventional forms of popular rap. This tension underscored the challenges faced by an artist whose ambition was not merely to entertain but to engage, educate, and inspire change. Nevertheless, Kendrick's commitment to his artistic vision remained steadfast. He navigated the complexities of the music industry with a strategic acumen that allowed him to maintain creative control while expanding his audience. His collaborations, production choices, and public persona all reflected a careful calibration designed to amplify his message without compromising its integrity. This balance was critical in establishing Kendrick Lamar as a figure of enduring influence and respect, both within hip-hop and in the broader cultural landscape. In sum, the initial phase of Kendrick Lamar's journey set the foundation for a career defined by innovation, courage, and a profound engagement with the social and artistic challenges of his time. His emergence as a groundbreaking hip-hop artist was not merely a personal achievement but a significant cultural event that reshaped perceptions of what rap music could be and do. It was an announcement that the genre, often dismissed or marginalized in elite artistic circles, possessed the capacity for intellectual depth, emotional resonance, and social impact on par with any other form of contemporary art. This foundational moment in Kendrick Lamar's trajectory would prove essential for understanding the subsequent evolution of his work, as well as the broader transformation of hip-hop's role within American culture. His early insistence on complexity and authenticity laid the groundwork for the critical acclaim and historic recognition that would eventually follow, signaling a new chapter in the ongoing dialogue between music, identity, and society. In the early stages of Kendrick Lamar's ascent, a prevailing skepticism shadowed his artistry, a skepticism rooted not in doubt of his talent, but in unease over the intellectual and thematic depth that permeated his lyrics. The music industry, with its entrenched conventions and commercial imperatives, often viewed Kendrick's complex narratives and socially conscious themes as liabilities rather than assets. Critics and insiders alike questioned whether an artist so deeply embedded in introspective and politically charged content could attain mainstream success in a market dominated by more accessible, formulaic expressions of hip-hop. This skepticism was emblematic of a broader tension within the genre and its commercial ecosystem, the persistent dichotomy between artistic depth and marketability. Hip-hop had long wrestled with its identity, balancing its roots as a voice of resistance and community storytelling against the pressures of commodification and mass appeal. Kendrick's lyricism, with its dense symbolism, layered metaphors, and unwavering engagement with systemic issues, defied the simplified narratives that dominated radio waves and streaming platforms. To some gatekeepers, his work was perceived as too cerebral, too challenging for audiences conditioned to expect entertainment rather than provocation. The critique that Kendrick's lyrics were too deep was not merely a dismissal of his artistic approach but a reflection of the discomfort provoked by his refusal to conform to established expectations. His music demanded active listening, critical engagement, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable social realities, qualities that contrasted sharply with the prevailing trends favoring catchy hooks and surface-level themes. This resistance to simplification positioned Kendrick as a disruptor within the industry, but also exposed him to doubts about his commercial viability. Industry executives and commentators often framed Kendrick's intellectualism as a risk, suggesting that his emphasis on social consciousness and personal vulnerability might alienate mainstream audiences. The underlying assumption was that popular hip-hop needed to prioritize immediate gratification and broad relatability over nuanced exploration of identity, race, and systemic oppression. Kendrick's work, therefore, was positioned at the margins, celebrated by niche audiences and critics, but viewed with suspicion by those invested in maintaining the profitability of a more sanitized, market-friendly version of the genre. This skepticism extended beyond industry insiders to some segments of the listening public, who found Kendrick's dense lyricism and intricate storytelling difficult to penetrate. The layered meanings and complex themes required a level of attentiveness and reflection that was uncommon in mainstream music consumption. For many, Kendrick's music was less an easy soundtrack and more a demanding intellectual and emotional experience. This created a divide between those who embraced his artistry as transformative and those who regarded it as inaccessible or overly didactic. Moreover, the critique of Kendrick's lyrics as too deep often intersected with broader cultural biases concerning race and the expectations placed upon Black artists. Within a society that frequently imposes reductive stereotypes and limits the representational possibilities for African American voices, Kendrick's refusal to simplify his message-challenged dominant narratives. His insistence on authenticity and complexity was a form of resistance against cultural pigeonholing, asserting the right of Black artists to explore the full spectrum of human experience without concession. The tension between artistic ambition and commercial expectation manifested in the marketing and reception of Kendrick's early projects. While his mixtape, Section .80, and debut album Good Kid, Mad City, received critical praise for their depth and innovation, they were often accompanied by questions about their accessibility and potential for widespread appeal. The narrative that Kendrick's music was too deep was, in many respects, a coded way of expressing doubt about whether audiences were ready or willing to engage with the challenging themes he presented. Yet it was precisely this depth that distinguished Kendrick from many of his contemporaries and underscored his significance as an artist. His lyrics were not designed for passive consumption. They functioned as layered texts requiring interpretation and reflection. The complexity of his storytelling mirrored the complexity of the social issues he addressed: racism, identity, trauma, and systemic violence, demanding a listener willing to grapple with these realities rather than escape from them. This early skepticism also underscored the limitations of prevailing industry models and audience expectations, revealing a reluctance to embrace hip-hop as a vehicle for substantive social critique. The assumption that mass audiences preferred simplicity and entertainment over complexity and challenge was a reflection of broader cultural tendencies to undervalue intellectual rigor in popular music, especially when it emerged from marginalized communities. Kendrick's work disrupted these assumptions by demonstrating that lyrical depth and commercial success were not mutually exclusive. The tension was further complicated by the evolving landscape of hip-hop itself. As the genre grew in global reach and commercial influence, the pressure to conform to market-driven formulas intensified. Artists who sought to maintain artistic integrity while addressing difficult subject matter faced an uphill battle against the forces of commodification and homogenization. Kendrick's insistence on confronting social realities and personal struggles head-on was a defiant stance against these pressures, positioning him as both an innovator and a provocateur. Despite the doubts cast upon him, Kendrick's response was one of unwavering resolve. Rather than diluting his message or conforming to external expectations, he doubled down on his commitment to lyrical complexity and social engagement. This determination reflected a profound belief in the transformative power of music as a tool for education, empowerment, and change. Kendrick viewed his artistry as inseparable from his social responsibility, embracing the challenges and risks that came with pushing boundaries. This period of skepticism, therefore, was not merely a hurdle to overcome but a defining moment in Kendrick's artistic evolution. It clarified the stakes of his work and sharpened his sense of purpose. The critiques he faced illuminated the cultural and commercial barriers that constrained hip-hop's potential, while also highlighting the necessity of a voice like his, one willing to speak truth to power and to demand more from both the genre and its audiences. The dialogue between Kendrick and his critics was emblematic of a broader cultural negotiation about the role of art in society. Should popular music serve primarily as escapism, or could it be a platform for critical reflection and social commentary? Kendrick's insistence on the latter challenged entrenched norms and expanded the possibilities for what hip-hop, and by extension popular culture, could achieve. His music became a site of contestation, where questions of artistic integrity, commercial viability, and cultural representation intersected. In this light, the skepticism surrounding Kendrick's lyrical depth can be understood as a reflection of larger societal anxieties about confronting uncomfortable truths. His work forced audiences and industry figures alike to reckon with issues that many preferred to ignore or simplify. The resistance he encountered was thus not solely about musical style but about the broader cultural willingness to engage with the realities he portrayed. Yet, even amid this skepticism, there were early signs of a shifting paradigm. Critics who recognized the significance of Kendrick's work began to articulate its value not only in artistic terms but as a crucial intervention in cultural discourse. His ability to weave personal narrative with social critique resonated with those seeking a more substantive and authentic voice within hip-hop. This emerging recognition hinted at the eventual redefinition of the genre's boundaries and the elevation of lyrical depth as a marker of artistic excellence. Kendrick's navigation of these early challenges underscored his role as a boundary pusher, a figure unafraid to challenge industry norms and audience expectations. His trajectory revealed the tensions inherent in being a socially conscious artist within a commercialized and often superficial music landscape. Yet it was precisely this tension that fueled his creative drive and shaped his distinctive voice. Thus, the critique of Kendrick's lyrics as too deep was emblematic of a cultural crossroads, the moment when hip-hop's potential for intellectual and social engagement was both questioned and affirmed. Kendrick Lamar's response to this skepticism would not only define his career but also contribute to a broader transformation in how hip-hop is understood, valued, and celebrated. Confronted with persistent doubts about the accessibility of his music, Kendrick Lamar's response was not to retreat into safer, more conventional territory, but to embrace the very qualities that set him apart. His perseverance in the face of industry skepticism reflected a profound conviction in the power and necessity of his artistic vision. Rather than viewing the critiques as deterrents, Kendrick transformed them into catalysts for creative resilience, forging a path defined by authenticity and uncompromising depth. This resolve was underpinned by a deep understanding of the role that music could play as an instrument of social change and personal empowerment. Kendrick saw his craft not simply as a means to commercial success, but as a vital platform for storytelling that could illuminate the lived experiences of communities often rendered invisible or misunderstood. His commitment to this mission demanded a level of courage and self-awareness that transcended the typical challenges faced by emerging artists, positioning him as both a creative innovator and a cultural leader. Kendrick's embrace of his unique style and message required navigating a complex landscape where artistic integrity often clashed with commercial pressures. The music industry, with its entrenched expectations and profit-driven models, frequently incentivized conformity to popular formulas. Yet, Kendrick's steadfast refusal to dilute his content or simplify his narratives challenged these conventions. He understood that true change, both personal and societal, required confronting discomfort and complexity, and he was unwilling to sacrifice these elements for the sake of broader acceptance. This creative and personal resolve manifested in the meticulous crafting of his albums, where every lyric, beat, and arrangement was imbued with intentionality and purpose. Kendrick's artistic process was characterized by a rigorous attention to detail and a willingness to delve into difficult subject matter with honesty and nuance. Albums such as Good Kid, Mad City exemplified this approach, weaving intricate stories of youth, struggle, and redemption into a cohesive and compelling whole. The work demanded active engagement from listeners, inviting them to unpack layers of meaning and grapple with the emotional and social complexities presented. Moreover, Kendrick's perseverance was evident in his ability to balance vulnerability with strength, exposing his own flaws and fears while asserting a powerful voice of resistance and hope. This duality enriched his artistry, allowing him to connect with audiences on an intimate level even as he addressed broader systemic issues. His refusal to shy away from personal or political truths lent his music an authenticity that resonated deeply, fostering a sense of trust and solidarity with listeners. The cultivation of this artistic resolve was not an isolated endeavor but one informed by a broader cultural and intellectual context. Kendrick drew inspiration from a range of influences, including literary figures, activists, and historical movements, integrating these elements into his work to create a rich tapestry of meaning. This intertextuality reflected his belief in the transformative potential of art to educate and inspire, positioning his music as a continuation of long-standing traditions of cultural critique and social justice. Kendrick's perseverance also entailed a strategic navigation of the music industry's structures. While maintaining creative control, he engaged with collaborators, producers, and executives in ways that amplified his voice without compromising his vision. This balance of autonomy and collaboration was crucial in expanding his reach and impact, enabling his work to resonate across diverse audiences while retaining its core message. His ability to operate within and against the industry's demands demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of the interplay between art and commerce. The evolution of Kendrick's public persona further reflected his commitment to authenticity and artistic integrity. He eschewed the trappings of celebrity excess and superficiality, instead cultivating an image rooted in intellectual rigor and social consciousness. This persona was not a calculated branding exercise but an extension of his lived experience and values, reinforcing the themes present in his music. Through interviews, public appearances, and social media, Kendrick consistently emphasized the importance of education, self-reflection, and community engagement, aligning his public identity with his creative ethos. Kendrick's response to industry doubts was also marked by a profound sense of responsibility to the communities from which he emerged. He recognized that his platform carried the weight of representation and that his choices could influence perceptions and opportunities for others. This awareness fueled his determination to remain true to his roots and to use his artistry to elevate marginalized voices. His music became a form of advocacy, addressing issues such as systemic racism, economic inequality, and mental health with a candor that challenged prevailing stigmas and inspired dialogue. The persistence Kendrick demonstrated in embracing his lyrical depth and thematic complexity ultimately began to shift perceptions within the music industry and among audiences. As his work gained traction, the narrative of his unsuitability for mainstream success due to too deep lyrics gave way to recognition of his unique contribution to hip-hop and popular culture. His albums achieved both critical acclaim and commercial success, signaling a reconfiguration of what was possible within the genre. Kendrick's journey illustrated that artistic ambition and social consciousness could coexist with widespread appeal. This transformation was not merely a personal victory but indicative of a broader cultural moment. Kendrick's success challenged the industry's narrow definitions of marketability and forced a reevaluation of the role of substance in popular music. His perseverance highlighted the appetite among listeners for work that engaged with real-world issues and complex emotional landscapes, undermining assumptions that depth and accessibility were mutually exclusive. As a result, Kendrick helped expand the boundaries of hip-hop, opening space for other artists to explore similarly ambitious themes. Central to this evolution was Kendrick's unwavering belief in the importance of staying true to one's voice amid external pressures. His career became a testament to the power of artistic conviction and the impact of refusing to compromise on core values. This stance resonated beyond the music itself, inspiring a generation of artists and audiences to demand greater authenticity and depth in cultural expression. Kendrick's perseverance thus had ripple effects that extended into the wider social and artistic landscape. Furthermore, Kendrick's embrace of his unique style and message was accompanied by a continuous process of growth and experimentation. He did not view his artistry as fixed but as an evolving dialogue with himself, his community, and the world. This openness to change allowed him to refine his craft, incorporate new influences, and respond to shifting cultural currents without losing sight of his foundational principles. The dynamic nature of his work underscored the vitality of his creative resolve and its capacity to adapt while maintaining integrity. In summary, Kendrick Lamar's response to the skepticism surrounding his lyrical depth was characterized by a profound creative and personal resolve that shaped the trajectory of his career. His embrace of complexity and social engagement in his music, coupled with strategic navigation of the industry and a commitment to authenticity, enabled him to transcend initial doubts and establish himself as a pioneering figure in hip-hop. This perseverance not only defined his artistry but also contributed to broader shifts in how the genre, and popular music more generally, conceived of depth, meaning, and cultural relevance. At the core of Kendrick Lamar's artistry lies a thematic complexity that elevates his music far beyond the conventions of mainstream hip-hop, positioning his work as a profound exploration of the multifaceted realities confronting individuals and communities in contemporary society. His lyrical narratives traverse the terrain of racism, identity, mental health, and systemic oppression with an unflinching honesty and nuanced insight that challenge listeners to engage with these issues on both intellectual and emotional levels. This thematic richness is not incidental but foundational to Kendrick's vision, reflecting a deliberate effort to use music as a conduit for deeper understanding and social reflection. Racism, as a pervasive and insidious force, occupies a central place in Kendrick's oeuvre. His lyrics lay bare the lived experiences of racial discrimination and the structural inequalities that shape the lives of African Americans in the United States. Rather than resorting to simplistic indictments or abstract rhetoric, Kendrick's approach is deeply personal and contextualized. He presents racism as both a historical legacy and a contemporary reality, illustrating its impact on individual psyche and communal cohesion. Through vivid storytelling and poignant imagery, Kendrick exposes the daily struggles and systemic barriers that define the Black experience, compelling his audience to confront uncomfortable truths often obscured in mainstream discourse. This exploration of race is intricately linked with questions of identity, which Kendrick approaches with remarkable complexity. His music delves into the tensions and contradictions inherent in navigating multiple, and sometimes conflicting identities, racial, cultural, social, and personal. Kendrick's narratives reflect the challenges of self-definition amid external pressures and stereotypes, capturing the fluidity and multiplicity of identity in a world marked by marginalization and resilience. This thematic concern resonates widely, offering a mirror for listeners grappling with their own identities and the societal forces that shape them. Mental health emerges as another vital theme in Kendrick's work, addressed with a candor that challenges pervasive stigmas within and beyond the African American community. His lyrics articulate the internal battles with depression, anxiety, and trauma, emphasizing the psychological toll of systemic violence and personal loss. Kendrick's willingness to foreground mental health issues disrupts traditional notions of masculinity and strength in hip-hop, opening a space for vulnerability and healing. By integrating these themes into his music, he not only humanizes those struggles, but also fosters a broader cultural conversation about emotional well-being and resilience. The societal issues Kendrick confronts extend to violence, poverty, and the cyclical nature of systemic disenfranchisement. His narratives often depict the harsh realities of life in economically marginalized neighborhoods, where violence and despair intertwine with hope and resistance. Through intricate storytelling, Kendrick captures the complexity of these environments, resisting reductive portrayals and instead highlighting the humanity and agency of those who inhabit them. His work critiques the social and political structures that perpetuate inequality, urging listeners to consider the broader contexts that shape individual lives. Kendrick's thematic complexity is further enhanced by his use of symbolic and metaphorical language, which imbues his lyrics with layered meanings and invites multiple interpretations. This poetic approach allows him to navigate difficult subjects with subtlety and depth, engaging listeners in an active process of meaning-making. The interplay of narrative voices, perspectives, and temporal shifts within his songs creates a dynamic and multifaceted discourse, reflecting the complexities of the issues he addresses. This sophistication in form mirrors the complexity of content, reinforcing the intellectual rigor of his artistry. Moreover, Kendrick's music often incorporates elements of historical and cultural memory, situating contemporary struggles within a continuum of resistance and resilience. References to African American history, civil rights movements, and cultural icons enrich his work, connecting past and present in a dialogue that honors legacy while envisioning change. This historical consciousness deepens the thematic resonance of his music, providing a framework for understanding the ongoing nature of social struggles and the possibilities for transformation. The intersectionality of Kendrick's themes, how race, identity, mental health, and systemic injustice intertwine, reflects a sophisticated understanding of the interconnectedness of social issues. His work refuses compartmentalization, instead presenting a holistic view of human experience that acknowledges the complexity of oppression and the multifaceted nature of liberation. This approach challenges listeners to move beyond simplistic binaries and engage with the nuanced realities that define contemporary life. In addressing these themes, Kendrick's music functions as both a mirror and a lamp, reflecting the realities of marginalized communities while illuminating paths toward awareness and change. His narratives do not offer easy resolutions or simplistic moralizing. Instead, they embrace ambiguity and contradiction, inviting contemplation and dialogue. This openness to complexity positions his work as a catalyst for critical thought and emotional engagement, fostering empathy and understanding across diverse audiences. Kendrick's thematic ambition also manifests in his exploration of spirituality and morality, dimensions that add further depth to his work. His lyrics frequently grapple with questions of faith, redemption, and ethical responsibility, reflecting a personal and communal search for meaning amidst adversity. These spiritual undertones enrich his narratives, providing a framework for resilience and hope that transcends material circumstances. By integrating these elements, Kendrick expands the thematic scope of hip-hop, demonstrating its capacity to engage with existential and philosophical questions. The cultural impact of Kendrick's thematic complexity extends beyond the boundaries of music, influencing broader conversations about race, identity, and mental health in society. His work has been embraced by educators, activists, and scholars as a valuable resource for understanding and addressing social issues. The depth and nuance of his lyrics have inspired critical engagement and have been used as a pedagogical tool to foster dialogue and awareness. This cross-disciplinary relevance underscores the transformative potential of his artistry. Kendrick's commitment to thematic complexity also challenges prevailing industry norms that often prioritize commercial appeal over substantive content. By foregrounding difficult and sometimes uncomfortable topics, he subverts expectations and redefines what constitutes marketable music. His success demonstrates that audiences are capable of and interested in engaging with work that demands intellectual and emotional investment. This shift has implications for the music industry's approach to artist development and marketing, suggesting a growing appetite for depth and authenticity. The richness of Kendrick's themes is matched by the emotional intensity of his delivery, which conveys urgency, pain, hope, and defiance. His vocal performances and musical arrangements complement the lyrical content, creating an immersive experience that resonates on multiple levels. This synthesis of form and content enhances the impact of his messages, making his music not only intellectually stimulating but also viscerally affecting. In sum, the thematic complexity in Kendrick Lamar's music represents a defining characteristic of his artistry and a significant contribution to the evolution of hip-hop. His engagement with issues such as racism, identity, mental health, and systemic injustice challenges listeners to confront difficult realities and to reconsider the possibilities of popular music as a medium for social critique and personal reflection. Through layered narratives, poetic language, and a holistic approach to social issues, Kendrick's work transcends entertainment to become a vital cultural discourse, one that resonates deeply within and beyond the communities he represents. The initial reception to Kendrick Lamar's intricate and socially conscious style was marked by a complex interplay of confusion, dismissal, and gradual appreciation, reflecting the broader cultural tensions surrounding the place of depth and nuance within popular music. Early listeners and media outlets often struggled to reconcile the density of Kendrick's lyrical content with prevailing expectations of hip-hop as a primarily entertainment-driven genre. This ambivalence underscored the challenges faced by an artist whose work demanded active engagement and critical reflection, qualities that were not universally sought or valued in mainstream audiences. The media's early portrayal of Kendrick was frequently characterized by cautious admiration tinged with skepticism. While critics acknowledged his technical skill and poetic prowess, there was a persistent undercurrent of doubt regarding the accessibility and commercial viability of his music. Reviews and interviews sometimes framed his complexity as a barrier, suggesting that his intellectual and thematic ambitions might limit his appeal beyond niche or specialized audiences. This framing mirrored long-standing industry narratives that equated popularity with simplicity, relegating socially conscious rap to the periphery of mainstream success. Public reaction echoed this ambivalence. For many casual listeners, Kendrick's music presented a challenge. Its dense symbolism, multi-layered storytelling, and engagement with difficult social realities contrasted sharply with the immediate gratification typically associated with popular music consumption. Some found his work opaque or overwhelming, leading to a degree of alienation or disinterest. This response highlighted the cultural gap between the demands of Kendrick's artistry and the expectations of a mass audience conditioned by commercialized musical forms. Yet, alongside these initial hurdles, there emerged a growing recognition of Kendrick's unique contribution to hip-hop and popular culture. As more listeners engaged with his albums and unpacked their rich thematic content, appreciation deepened and broadened. Fan communities, critics, and cultural commentators began to celebrate Kendrick's ability to blend artistic innovation with social commentary, positioning him as a trailblazer who expanded the possibilities of the genre. This shift reflected a broader appetite for music that challenged conventions and provided meaningful engagement with contemporary issues. The media's evolving response to Kendrick's style was marked by a gradual transition from skepticism to acclaim. Prestigious publications and influential critics started to highlight the intellectual rigor and emotional depth of his work, situating him within a lineage of artists who used their platform to address social justice and cultural identity. This critical embrace contributed to elevating Kendrick's profile, enhancing his legitimacy not only within hip-hop circles but also in the wider artistic community. The discourse surrounding his music began to emphasize its cultural and political significance as much as its aesthetic qualities. Public perception also shifted as Kendrick's influence permeated beyond traditional hip-hop audiences. His music resonated with younger generations seeking authenticity and complexity in their cultural consumption, mirroring broader societal conversations about race, inequality, and mental health. The relatability and urgency of his narratives fostered a sense of connection and solidarity, encouraging listeners to engage with themes that might otherwise remain abstract or marginalized. This growing engagement signaled a transformation in how popular music could serve as a medium for collective reflection and dialogue. Kendrick's ability to articulate the lived experiences of marginalized communities with nuance and empathy contributed to his music's widespread impact. His songs provided a voice for those often underrepresented in mainstream media, offering narratives that were both specific and universal. This duality allowed Kendrick to transcend cultural and geographic boundaries, establishing a global audience attuned to the social realities he depicted. The media's recognition of this global resonance further solidified his status as a cultural icon and a leading figure in contemporary music. The reception of Kendrick's style was also shaped by the evolving landscape of digital media and social platforms, which facilitated direct engagement between the artist and his audience. This connectivity enabled fans to dissect and discuss his lyrics in detail, fostering communities of interpretation and appreciation. Online forums, social media conversations, and academic analyses contributed to a vibrant ecosystem of dialogue around Kendrick's work, amplifying its reach and deepening its cultural significance. This participatory dynamic challenged traditional gatekeeping roles and empowered audiences to shape the narrative around his music. Despite the growing acclaim, Kendrick's work continued to provoke debate and dissent. Some critics and listeners maintained reservations about the density and seriousness of his lyrics, preferring more straightforward or conventional forms of entertainment. This ongoing tension underscored the contested nature of hip-hop's cultural space and the divergent expectations placed upon artists within the genre. The debates surrounding Kendrick's style highlighted broader questions about the balance between artistry and accessibility, and the role of popular music in addressing social issues. Kendrick's navigation of this complex reception landscape was marked by strategic engagement and artistic consistency. He remained committed to his vision, using the platform afforded by increased visibility to further amplify his messages and push creative boundaries. His public statements and interviews often addressed the challenges of being a socially conscious artist in a commercial environment, reflecting a self-awareness that informed his continued evolution. This dialogue with critics and fans alike contributed to shaping perceptions and expanding the possibilities for his work. The gradual shift in media and public reaction to Kendrick's music also reflected broader cultural movements toward recognizing the value of depth and authenticity in popular culture. The rise of socially conscious art forms across various media indicated a growing hunger for content that grappled with real-world issues and complex identities. Kendrick's success exemplified this trend, demonstrating that there was a substantial and engaged audience for music that transcended entertainment to provoke thought and inspire change. This evolving reception had significant implications for the hip-hop genre, challenging stereotypes and expanding the scope of what was considered legitimate artistic expression. Kendrick's prominence encouraged other artists to explore similarly ambitious themes and experiment with innovative narrative structures. The industry began to acknowledge that commercial success could coincide with intellectual and social engagement, opening new avenues for artistic development and recognition. In this context, Kendrick's music became a catalyst for cultural dialogue, inviting conversations about race, identity, mental health, and systemic injustice into mainstream discourse. The media's increasing willingness to engage seriously with his work contributed to legitimizing these discussions within popular culture. Audiences were not only consumers but participants in a larger conversation about the social realities and possibilities reflected in his lyrics. The trajectory of public and media response to Kendrick Lamar's style illustrates the transformative potential of persistent artistic integrity combined with cultural relevance. Initial confusion and dismissal gave way to widespread acclaim and influence, reflecting a dynamic process of negotiation between artist, industry, and audience. Kendrick's work challenged entrenched norms and expanded the cultural imagination, reshaping expectations for hip-hop and popular music more broadly. Ultimately, the reception of Kendrick's music underscores the power of art to provoke reflection and dialogue, even when it unsettles established conventions. His ability to inspire critical engagement and emotional resonance demonstrates that complexity and depth can find a place within the popular sphere. This evolution in perception not only affirmed Kendrick's artistry, but also signaled a broader cultural shift toward valuing substantive and socially conscious musical expression. Kendrick Lamar's artistic defiance emerged not merely as a stylistic choice, but as a profound assertion of identity and purpose in a cultural landscape often hostile to complexity and authenticity. His refusal to simplify or sanitize his message for mass consumption positioned him as a vanguard figure, an artist who embraced the responsibility of truth-telling even when it defied conventional wisdom about marketability or popularity. This defiance was deeply intertwined with Kendrick's commitment to representing the realities of marginalized communities and serving as a voice for those frequently silenced or misrepresented in mainstream media. At the heart of Kendrick's artistic identity was an unwavering dedication to authenticity. He resisted the pressures to conform to the commodified stereotypes that frequently shape portrayals of Black life in popular culture. Instead of succumbing to reductive tropes, Kendrick embraced the full complexity of his experience and that of his community, acknowledging pain, struggle, hope, and resilience in equal measure. This authenticity was not merely performative but rooted in a lived reality that informed every aspect of his music, from lyrical content to visual imagery and public discourse. Kendrick's defiance was also an act of cultural reclamation, challenging narratives that sought to marginalize or erase the voices of Black artists engaged in social critique. By foregrounding issues such as systemic racism, police brutality, economic disenfranchisement, and mental health, he reaffirmed hip-hop's origins as a vehicle for resistance and empowerment. His work resisted the dilution of these themes into palatable soundbites, insisting instead on a sustained and nuanced exploration that demanded attention and reflection. This commitment to authenticity and social consciousness positioned Kendrick as a leader within hip-hop's evolving landscape. He embodied a new paradigm in which artists could be unapologetically political and introspective without sacrificing artistic innovation or commercial success. Kendrick's example challenged peers and successors alike to reconsider the boundaries of acceptable subject matter and the role of the artist as an agent of cultural change. Moreover, Kendrick's defiance extended beyond his music into his public persona and interactions with the industry. He eschewed the trappings of celebrity excess, often adopting a demeanor of humility and seriousness that contrasted sharply with the hyperbolic personas cultivated by many contemporaries. His interviews, public appearances, and social media presence consistently emphasized themes of education, self-awareness, and community upliftment. This deliberate cultivation of a socially conscious image reinforced the messages in his work and underscored his role as a cultural figure committed to meaningful change. Kendrick's stance also challenged the music industry's commercial logic, which often prioritizes formulaic content designed to maximize profit rather than foster critical engagement. His insistence on complex narratives and challenging subject matter disrupted marketing strategies predicated on simplicity and mass appeal. Yet, through strategic collaborations and a nuanced understanding of industry dynamics, Kendrick navigated these pressures without compromising his artistic vision. This balancing act demonstrated that defiance need not be antagonistic but could coexist with pragmatic approaches to reach diverse audiences. The impact of Kendrick's artistic defiance was particularly significant for marginalized communities, who saw in his work a reflection of their own struggles and aspirations. His music validated experiences often overlooked or misrepresented in mainstream culture, providing a language through which listeners could articulate their realities and find solidarity. This representation carried profound implications for identity formation and cultural empowerment, affirming the value and complexity of Black life in contemporary America. Kendrick's role as a voice for marginalized communities was further reinforced by his engagement with themes of intergenerational trauma and healing. His narratives often traced the legacies of historical oppression and their reverberations in present-day struggles, linking personal and collective histories. This interweaving of the personal and political enriched his artistry and deepened his connection with audiences who recognized the authenticity and urgency of his message. In embracing his role as a cultural pioneer, Kendrick also expanded the possibilities for socially conscious hip-hop, demonstrating that such music could achieve both critical acclaim and commercial success. His trajectory challenged the notion that political and intellectual engagement in popular music was niche or peripheral. Instead, he carved out a space where artistry and activism fused, inspiring a new generation of artists to explore similarly ambitious and meaningful themes. Kendrick's defiance was not without its challenges and controversies. His candid exploration of difficult subjects sometimes provoked backlash from those uncomfortable with his critiques or who questioned the appropriateness of certain topics in mainstream music. Yet, Kendrick navigated these tensions with a measured approach, using his platform to foster dialogue rather than division. His ability to engage with criticism while maintaining his artistic integrity further solidified his reputation as a thoughtful and principled cultural leader. The artist's evolving public persona reflected a maturation that paralleled his artistic growth. While early in his career he was primarily known for his lyrical prowess, over time Kendrick embraced a broader role as a spokesperson for social justice and cultural reflection. This expansion of identity was neither imposed nor superficial but emerged organically from the consistency of his work and his commitment to addressing pressing societal issues. Kendrick's defiant authenticity also carried a pedagogical dimension, as he frequently incorporated educational elements into his music and public discourse. His lyrics often referenced historical events, cultural texts, and philosophical concepts, inviting listeners to engage with a wider intellectual tradition. This educational impulse extended beyond his music, as Kendrick advocated for critical thinking, self-examination, and community involvement in interviews and public statements. Furthermore, Kendrick's artistic defiance challenged dominant narratives within hip-hop about masculinity and emotional expression. His willingness to confront vulnerability, mental health struggles, and moral ambiguity, disrupted the genre's often rigid codes of behavior and representation. By modeling alternative forms of strength grounded in honesty and introspection, Kendrick expanded the expressive possibilities for artists and audiences alike. This expansion of expressive range contributed to a redefinition of hip-hop's cultural significance. Kendrick's work underscored the genre's capacity to serve as a site of complex identity negotiation, social critique, and artistic innovation. His defiance of reductive expectations not only enriched his own artistry but also elevated the cultural status of hip-hop as a whole. In essence, Kendrick Lamar's artistic defiance and commitment to identity represent a multifaceted stance that challenges simplification and commodification. His refusal to dilute his message for mass appeal, his embodiment of authenticity, and his role as a voice for marginalized communities collectively forge a legacy of cultural leadership and artistic innovation. Through this defiance, Kendrick reclaims hip-hop's roots as a tool for resistance and empowerment, while simultaneously expanding its horizons to encompass a broader range of human experience and social consciousness. The moment Kendrick Lamar was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Music marked a seismic shift not only in his personal career but in the cultural valuation of hip-hop as an art form. This unprecedented recognition by an institution historically reserved for classical, jazz, and more traditional genres challenged long-standing hierarchies within music and the arts at large. Kendrick's Pulitzer win was a profound affirmation of the intellectual and artistic legitimacy of hip-hop, signaling a new era in which the genre's capacity for nuanced social commentary and lyrical sophistication could no longer be ignored or marginalized. The award, bestowed for his album Damn, encapsulated a culmination of Kendrick's relentless pursuit of artistic depth and cultural critique. The album itself was a complex tapestry of themes: faith, identity, morality, and resilience, woven together with a masterful command of language and musical innovation. Damn was not only a work of musical excellence but a compelling narrative that grappled with the contradictions and challenges of contemporary life, particularly within the African American experience. Its recognition by the Pulitzer Committee underscored the album's profound resonance and its capacity to transcend genre boundaries. The significance of Kendrick's Pulitzer went extended far beyond personal accolade. It represented a cultural watershed moment that redefined the parameters of artistic achievement. Hip-hop, long dismissed by some critics as ephemeral or commercial, was now acknowledged for its capacity to embody the highest standards of creativity and intellectual rigor. This recognition disrupted entrenched biases within the arts establishment, compelling a reevaluation of the criteria by which music is judged and celebrated. Kendrick's achievement illuminated the evolving landscape of American music, where diverse voices and forms could claim their rightful place in the canon. Furthermore, the Pulitzer Prize served as a beacon for other artists within the hip-hop community and beyond, signaling that socially conscious and intellectually ambitious work could attain the highest levels of critical recognition. It validated the efforts of those who sought to use music as a platform for social justice, cultural exploration, and personal introspection. Kendrick's win amplified the visibility of such work, encouraging a proliferation of artistry that embraces complexity and challenges dominant narratives. The cultural impact of this milestone was also felt in the broader discourse surrounding race, representation, and artistic legitimacy. Kendrick's recognition by a traditionally elite institution challenged the exclusionary practices that had often marginalized Black artists and genres rooted in African American cultural expression. The Pulitzer Prize became a symbol of progress toward inclusivity, reflecting a growing acknowledgement of the diverse forms through which American artistry is expressed. It also sparked important conversations about the intersections of race, culture, and institutional validation. Kendrick's Pulitzer-winning album was distinguished by its narrative ambition and sonic experimentation, blending elements of traditional hip-hop with influences from jazz, soul, and gospel. This hybridity reflected a sophisticated engagement with musical history and innovation, situating his work within a continuum of African American artistic traditions while pushing boundaries forward. The album's production, lyrical content, and thematic coherence demonstrated a holistic artistic vision that resonated deeply with both critics and audiences. The awarding of the Pulitzer Prize to Kendrick also challenged prevailing notions of what constitutes serious or high art. His music, rooted in the vernacular and experiences of marginalized communities, disrupted elitist conceptions that had historically privileged certain genres and forms. By recognizing "Damn," the Pulitzer Committee acknowledged that profound artistic expression can emerge from popular culture and that such work holds significant cultural and intellectual weight. This shift had implications for the arts world's engagement with popular music and its diverse audiences. Kendrick's achievement was not without controversy or debate. Some critics questioned the appropriateness of awarding a Pulitzer to hip-hop, reflecting lingering prejudices and misunderstandings about the genre's artistic value. Others raised concerns about the institutionalization of what had been a grassroots, countercultural movement. Yet, these debates highlighted the transformative potential of Kendrick's win to provoke critical reflection on cultural hierarchies and the evolving nature of artistic excellence. The Pulitzer Prize also brought increased scrutiny and expectations for Kendrick's subsequent work. As a bearer of this historic accolade, he was positioned as a standard-bearer for socially conscious music and artistic innovation. This status carried both opportunity and pressure, as audiences and critics anticipated further boundary-pushing projects that could sustain and expand the impact of his earlier achievements. Kendrick's navigation of this heightened profile demonstrated his continued commitment to artistic integrity and cultural engagement. Beyond the immediate realm of music, Kendrick's Pulitzer recognition reverberated across cultural and academic fields. Scholars, educators, and cultural critics incorporated his work into curricula and discourse, recognizing its pedagogical value and its capacity to illuminate contemporary social issues. The album became a subject of study and analysis, bridging popular culture and academic inquiry in ways that enriched both. This crossover underscored the expanding influence of Kendrick's artistry and its role in shaping cultural conversations. Kendrick's Pulitzer Prize also had symbolic resonance within the African American community and among marginalized populations broadly. It represented a triumph of representation and visibility, affirming the value of Black voices and narratives in national cultural institutions. The award highlighted the importance of diversity in artistic recognition and the power of music to articulate collective experiences and aspirations. It served as an inspiration for emerging artists and activists seeking to challenge systemic barriers and assert their creative agency. In many ways, the Pulitzer Prize functioned as both a culmination and a catalyst, acknowledging the artistic achievements of Kendrick Lamar while propelling hip-hop and socially conscious music into new realms of cultural legitimacy. It validated the intellectual and emotional labor embedded in Kendrick's work and opened doors for greater acceptance and celebration of diverse artistic expressions. This moment marked a redefinition of artistic boundaries and an expansion of what American culture could recognize as exemplary. The awarding of the Pulitzer Prize to Kendrick Lamar's "Damn" thus stands as a landmark event in the history of contemporary music and culture. It signaled a convergence of artistic excellence, social relevance, and institutional recognition that challenges prior limitations and paves the way for future innovations. Kendrick's achievement exemplifies the transformative power of lyrical genius and cultural authenticity, affirming hip-hop's place at the vanguard of artistic and social discourse. This historic recognition also underscored the evolving relationship between popular music and critical institutions, suggesting a future in which the boundaries between high and popular culture continue to blur and enrich one another. Kendrick's Pulitzer Prize not only honored his individual artistry, but also heralded a broader cultural shift toward inclusivity, complexity, and social awareness in the arts. It redefined the possibilities of hip-hop and set a precedent for the recognition of socially conscious music as a profound and vital artistic force. Kendrick Lamar's Pulitzer Prize win did more than honor a singular artistic achievement. It precipitated a profound re-examination of hip-hop's place within the cultural and artistic mainstream, challenging entrenched stereotypes and expanding the genre's perceived boundaries. Historically marginalized within elite artistic institutions and often dismissed as mere entertainment or commercial product, hip-hop found in Kendrick's recognition a powerful affirmation of its intellectual and cultural significance. This moment catalyzed a broader shift in how the genre was understood, celebrated, and integrated into the fabric of American cultural life. The Pulitzer Prize served as a potent counterpoint to the reductive narratives that had long constrained hip-hop's legitimacy. For decades, the genre was frequently caricatured as violent, materialistic, or superficial, overshadowing its rich traditions of storytelling, political commentary, and artistic innovation. Kendrick's win disrupted these simplistic portrayals by highlighting the depth, complexity, and social relevance embedded within hip-hop. The accolade invited both critics and audiences to reconsider the genre's artistic merits, framing it as a vital medium for exploring profound social and personal themes. Institutionally, the recognition challenged the historic gatekeeping practices of cultural arbiters who had often excluded or marginalized genres associated with marginalized communities. The Pulitzer Committee's decision to award a hip-hop artist signaled a willingness to broaden the criteria for artistic excellence, embracing forms that reflect contemporary realities and diverse voices. This shift had ripple effects across other institutions, encouraging museums, academic programs, and arts organizations to engage more seriously with hip-hop and its cultural contributions. Kendrick's Pulitzer win also influenced the music industry's approach to hip-hop, prompting a reassessment of the genre's potential beyond commercial metrics. The acknowledgement of Damn as a work of significant cultural and artistic value encouraged labels, producers, and executives to support projects that emphasized lyrical depth, social consciousness, and experimental innovation. This recalibration expanded opportunities for artists whose work challenged mainstream conventions, fostering a more diverse and intellectually engaged hip-hop landscape. Moreover, the cultural impact of Kendrick's recognition extended into public discourse, where hip-hop's role as a platform for social critique gained renewed visibility. The album's themes, addressing systemic racism, identity, faith, and resilience, resonated widely in a moment marked by heightened awareness of racial injustice and social inequity. Kendrick's elevated platform facilitated conversations about these issues in spaces that traditionally might have overlooked them, including academic forums, policy discussions, and mainstream media. As such, his work became a bridge between artistic expression and social activism. The Pulitzer Prize also reshaped perceptions within the hip-hop community itself. Kendrick's achievement underscored the legitimacy of artists who pursued socially conscious and intellectually ambitious projects, validating their approaches and encouraging artistic risk-taking. It fostered a sense of pride and possibility, demonstrating that hip-hop could command critical respect without sacrificing authenticity or cultural relevance. This internal affirmation contributed to a flourishing of diverse voices and styles within the genre, enriching its creative ecosystem. At the same time, the award sparked important conversations about the evolving relationship between hip-hop and the broader cultural establishment. While celebrated by many, some viewed the institutional recognition with ambivalence, concerned that it might signal co-optation or dilution of hip-hop's radical roots. These debates highlighted the tensions inherent in hip-hop's mainstream integration, the balance between preserving its origins as a voice of resistance and embracing its expanding influence and acceptance. Kendrick's work and its recognition thus became a focal point for reflecting on hip-hop's trajectory and future possibilities. Kendrick's Pulitzer win also had implications for the representation of Black artistry and narratives within American culture. The award elevated stories and perspectives that had often been marginalized, affirming their centrality to the nation's cultural identity. This visibility challenged monolithic portrayals of Black life, showcasing its complexity, diversity, and intellectual richness. By positioning Kendrick's work within the highest echelons of artistic achievement, the Pulitzer helped dismantle barriers to representation and open pathways for broader inclusion. The recognition fostered interdisciplinary engagement, as scholars, critics, and educators incorporated Kendrick's music into curricula and critical studies. His work became a touchstone for exploring themes of race, identity, politics, and aesthetics, bridging popular culture and academic inquiry. This integration enriched both domains, allowing for nuanced analysis and wider dissemination of ideas. The Pulitzer thus not only honored the artist but also expanded the cultural infrastructure supporting hip-hop as a subject of serious study. The broader cultural shift prompted by Kendrick's recognition also influenced emerging artists across genres, encouraging them to embrace complexity and social engagement in their work. His success demonstrated that audiences were receptive to music that challenged norms and addressed pressing issues, inspiring a wave of creativity that prioritized substance alongside style. This influence extended beyond hip-hop, shaping contemporary music's landscape and its relationship to cultural discourse. Kendrick's Pulitzer Prize also catalyzed conversations about the evolving definitions of artistry and excellence in an increasingly diverse and interconnected cultural environment. His work exemplified how traditional categories of high and popular art could intersect and enrich one another, challenging rigid distinctions that had long governed cultural valuation. This intersectionality broadened the horizons for artists and audiences alike, fostering a more inclusive and dynamic artistic ecosystem. Importantly, the cultural impact of Kendrick's Pulitzer win underscored the transformative potential of recognizing marginalized voices within dominant institutions. It illustrated how such recognition could validate and amplify perspectives that contribute to a fuller understanding of society's complexities. Kendrick's achievement thus served as a beacon for ongoing efforts to democratize cultural representation and to celebrate diversity in its many forms. The Pulitzer's recognition of Kendrick Lamar's Damn also illuminated the power of music as a form of storytelling and social commentary capable of shaping public consciousness. His album's intricate narratives and thematic depth challenged listeners to engage critically with issues of injustice, identity, and morality. This capacity to provoke reflection and dialogue reinforced hip-hop's role as a vital cultural force, capable of influencing attitudes and inspiring change. In essence, Kendrick Lamar's Pulitzer Prize win reshaped the cultural terrain by elevating hip-hop status and broadening the scope of artistic legitimacy. It challenged stereotypes, expanded institutional inclusivity, and fostered an environment conducive to socially conscious creativity. The ripple effects of this milestone continue to influence the music industry, cultural institutions, and public discourse, marking a pivotal moment in the recognition and celebration of hip-hop's artistic and social contributions. Kendrick Lamar's legacy, forged through a career that melded lyrical brilliance with incisive social commentary, has left an indelible mark on artists, critics, and audiences alike, reshaping the contours of hip-hop and popular culture. His body of work stands as a testament to the transformative power of music that refuses to shy away from complexity and challenge, inspiring a reevaluation of what socially conscious art can achieve within the mainstream. This legacy is multifaceted, encompassing artistic innovation, cultural influence, and a redefinition of the possibilities for engagement and representation. For emerging artists, Kendrick's journey offers both a blueprint and an inspiration. His success demonstrated that it is possible to maintain artistic integrity and address pressing social issues while achieving commercial acclaim. This dual accomplishment has encouraged a new generation of musicians to embrace depth and authenticity, pushing beyond the confines of formulaic content and superficial themes. Kendrick's example emboldens artists to explore identity, politics, mental health, and community with nuance and courage, fostering a creative environment where substance and style coexist dynamically. Critics, too, have been compelled to reconsider the frameworks through which hip-hop and popular music are evaluated. Kendrick's work challenged traditional critical paradigms by demanding attention to lyrical complexity, thematic ambition, and cultural context. His albums invite rigorous analysis, blending poetic craftsmanship with socio-political insight, thereby enriching the discourse surrounding contemporary music. This shift has encouraged a more expansive and inclusive critical practice that acknowledges the intellectual rigor and cultural significance of hip-hop as a vital artistic movement. Among audiences, Kendrick's legacy is evident in the heightened expectations and engagement with music as a medium for reflection and dialogue. His narratives, deeply rooted in personal and communal experience, resonate across diverse demographics, fostering empathy and awareness. Listeners are invited not merely to consume but to participate in a collective exploration of identity, injustice, and resilience. This active engagement transforms the relationship between artist and audience, cultivating a shared space for cultural and social reckoning. The redefinition of what is possible for socially conscious music in the mainstream owes much to Kendrick's insistence on complexity and authenticity. His success dispelled the notion that popular music must sacrifice depth for accessibility, proving that audiences value and respond to work that challenges and inspires. This paradigm shift has opened doors for a wider array of voices and narratives, enriching the musical landscape with diversity and intellectual vitality. Kendrick's legacy thus extends beyond his own oeuvre, influencing industry practices and audience expectations alike. Kendrick's influence also permeates the broader cultural and political arenas. His music has been embraced as a tool for education and activism, used to illuminate issues of systemic racism, inequality, and mental health stigma. By articulating these concerns through a compelling artistic lens, Kendrick has contributed to shaping public conversations and fostering social awareness. His work exemplifies the potential of music to serve as a catalyst for change, bridging cultural expression and political engagement. Moreover, Kendrick's legacy challenges the historical marginalization of Black artists and narratives within dominant cultural institutions. His achievements have expanded the representational possibilities for African American voices, affirming their centrality to the nation's cultural fabric. This expanded visibility has implications not only for artistic recognition but also for cultural identity and empowerment. Kendrick's success signals a broader movement toward inclusivity and equity in cultural production and reception. The thematic richness and narrative sophistication of Kendrick's music have also influenced the evolution of hip-hop's aesthetic and conceptual dimensions. His integration of personal storytelling, social critique, and poetic innovation has set new standards for artistic ambition within the genre. This elevation of content and form invites ongoing experimentation and dialogue, encouraging artists to push creative boundaries while engaging with substantive issues. Kendrick's legacy thus acts as a catalyst for the continual reinvention and enrichment of hip-hop. In the realm of education and scholarship, Kendrick's work has become an essential subject of study, bridging popular culture and academic inquiry. His albums are analyzed for their literary qualities, cultural commentary, and historical resonance, serving as rich texts for exploring contemporary social dynamics. This academic engagement not only legitimizes hip-hop within intellectual circles, but also enhances public understanding of the genre's complexity and significance. Kendrick's legacy thereby contributes to the democratization of cultural knowledge and critical discourse. Kendrick's influence is also evident in the ways his music has fostered community and dialogue among listeners. His exploration of shared experiences and collective trauma creates spaces for empathy and solidarity, transcending individual differences. This communal dimension of his work underscores the social function of music as a means of connection and healing. Kendrick's legacy thus encompasses not only artistic and cultural innovation, but also the cultivation of relational and emotional bonds. The lasting impact of Kendrick Lamar's journey is further reflected in the ongoing conversations about the role of artists as agents of social change. His career exemplifies how creative expression can intersect with activism and consciousness raising, challenging artists to consider their responsibility and potential influence. Kendrick's example expands the possibilities for cultural leadership, demonstrating that artistry and advocacy can coexist and reinforce one another in powerful ways. In sum, Kendrick Lamar's legacy is a complex and enduring force that has reshaped the landscape of hip-hop and popular culture. Through his lyrical mastery, thematic depth, and cultural engagement, he has expanded the horizons of what music can convey and achieve. His influence resonates across artistic, critical, and social domains, inspiring new generations to pursue authenticity, innovation, and social awareness. Kendrick's journey stands as a beacon of possibility, affirming the capacity of music to reflect, challenge, and transform society. The broader cultural shift toward depth in popular music, catalyzed in no small part by Kendrick Lamar's groundbreaking journey, marks a significant evolution in how audiences, critics, and industry stakeholders engage with artistry. This transformation reflects an increasing appetite for complexity, authenticity, and social relevance within mainstream music, a departure from the historically dominant paradigms that favored surface-level appeal and commercial formula. Kendrick's rise illuminated the profound possibilities inherent in popular music as a vehicle for intellectual engagement and cultural critique, setting a precedent that continues to inspire and challenge the contemporary musical landscape. At the heart of this cultural shift lies a recalibration of audience expectations. Listeners today seek more than mere entertainment. They desire music that resonates on emotional, intellectual, and social levels. Kendrick's work, with its layered narratives, nuanced explorations of identity, and incisive commentary on systemic injustice, exemplifies this new paradigm. His success demonstrated that audiences are willing and eager to engage with music that demands active reflection and grapples with complex realities. This shift has encouraged a diversification of musical voices and themes, fostering a richer and more inclusive cultural dialogue. The music industry has responded to this changing landscape by increasingly supporting artists who prioritize depth and authenticity. While commercial considerations remain paramount, there is a growing recognition that substantive content can coexist with, indeed enhance, market appeal. Kendrick's trajectory challenged the notion that intellectual rigor and social consciousness are liabilities within popular music, proving instead that they can be assets that deepen audience connection and critical acclaim. This recognition has broadened the scope of what is considered viable and valuable in the marketplace. This evolving appreciation for depth in popular music has also influenced production practices and artistic collaborations. Producers and artists alike are experimenting with more intricate arrangements, diverse sonic textures, and interdisciplinary influences, reflecting an ambition to create work that is both musically innovative and thematically resonant. Kendrick's albums, noted for their sophisticated blending of jazz, funk, soul, and traditional hip-hop elements, exemplify this trend toward hybridity and experimentation. Such artistic choices signal a commitment to pushing boundaries and resisting reductive genre categorizations. Culturally, the shift toward complexity in popular music aligns with broader societal movements that emphasize critical consciousness and social justice. As conversations about race, inequality, mental health, and identity gain prominence, music becomes a vital arena for exploring and articulating these themes. Kendrick's work, deeply embedded in these discourses, serves as both a reflection and a catalyst of this cultural moment. His influence extends beyond the confines of music into education, activism, and public policy discussions, demonstrating the multifaceted impact of art that engages seriously with social realities. The rise of digital media and streaming platforms has further facilitated this cultural shift by enabling diverse and niche voices to reach global audiences without the traditional gatekeeping of major labels and broadcasters. This democratization of access has amplified the reach of artists like Kendrick who prioritize depth and social engagement, connecting them with listeners who seek meaningful and challenging content. The resulting ecosystem supports a dynamic interplay between creators and audiences, fostering communities of interpretation and activism around music. Importantly, the cultural shift toward depth also challenges the historical marginalization of certain genres and voices within the artistic canon. Kendrick Lamar's Pulitzer Prize symbolized a breakthrough in this regard, signaling institutional acknowledgement of hip-hop's artistic and cultural value. This recognition has encouraged a reevaluation of other marginalized genres and creators, promoting a more inclusive understanding of artistry that embraces diversity in form, content, and perspective. The shift thus contributes to ongoing efforts to democratize cultural validation and representation. The implications of this shift extend to the educational sphere, where popular music with substantive content increasingly finds a place in curricula across disciplines. Kendrick's albums, for example, are studied not only for their musical innovation but also for their socio-political commentary and literary qualities. This integration enriches educational experiences, fostering critical thinking and cultural literacy among students. It also bridges the gap between popular culture and academic inquiry, validating the importance of contemporary artistic expressions in understanding societal dynamics. This broader cultural embrace of depth in music also influences the ways in which artists conceive of their role and responsibility. Inspired by figures like Kendrick, musicians are more frequently viewing their work as a form of cultural leadership and social intervention. This perspective encourages the creation of art that is not only aesthetically compelling but also socially conscious and transformative. Such a stance redefines success beyond commercial metrics, emphasizing impact, authenticity, and community engagement. The cultural shift also manifests in audience behavior and reception. Listeners increasingly seek out music that challenges their perspectives, provokes critical reflection, and fosters empathy. This engagement transforms music consumption from passive entertainment into an active, participatory experience. Kendrick's work exemplifies the power of music to catalyze such engagement, inviting audiences to grapple with complex issues and to envision possibilities for personal and societal change. Furthermore, this evolving cultural landscape acknowledges the interconnectedness of artistic expression and identity formation. Music that delves into themes of race, gender, mental health, and social justice provides vital frameworks for individuals and communities to articulate their experiences and aspirations. Kendrick's nuanced portrayal of these themes offers models for understanding and resilience, contributing to broader cultural conversations about belonging and empowerment. The shift toward depth in popular music also challenges industry practices that prioritize rapid consumption and disposability. Instead, there is a renewed valorization of albums and projects conceived as cohesive artistic statements, inviting sustained listening and interpretation. Kendrick's albums, with their conceptual unity and narrative arcs, exemplify this approach, encouraging audiences to engage deeply and repeatedly. This trend supports a more enduring and meaningful relationship between music and its listeners. In sum, the cultural shift toward depth in popular music, epitomized by Kendrick Lamar's journey, signifies a transformative moment in contemporary artistry. It reflects an expanding recognition of music's capacity to serve as a site of intellectual inquiry, social critique, and emotional resonance. This evolution fosters a richer, more inclusive, and more impactful musical landscape, one that honors complexity, authenticity, and the power of art to illuminate and shape the human experience. Kendrick's influence thus endures not only in his own work but in the vibrant and evolving culture of music that he helped to redefine.